Welcome to our first video in a series of videos produced this year in partnership with Port Technology International, where we're tackling the big questions around artificial intelligence. What it is, what we can achieve with it today in the maritime industry, and where it's likely headed in the near term. Today, we're sitting down with four prominent consultants from across the maritime industry to hear their views of artificial intelligence. Mauricio, are there misconceptions about AI today?
Let's first then define what is AI. And AI, there are two currents. So, college graduates, they would say, it's machine learning with artificial neural networks in Python applied to, but I like the broader scope of it. Artificial neural networks has been around since the 50s. And again, the problem with AI, it's, I would say the problem and the misconceptions around it is that it's not only, developing the artificial network, it's everything in the process around it. It's about how you train the system. It's about how you recognize the problem. This is a problem that I cannot solve, so I have to use a tool. Then you select the tool, then you make a model of that problem, in whatever technique you like to use. So it could be, machine learning, artificial neural networks. It could be, an optimization model. It could be whatever that helps you solve the problem in a better way than your human brain will do, or an automated way.
What do you see as the current state of AI in port and terminal operations?
Yeah, what is the current state? I would say all over the place. But again, many of these applications, the challenge that they have is how do you develop and test them? Because, ports are very expensive. You cannot say, I want to develop an autonomous vehicle and I need to crash it 100,000 times to train my brain. So this is what I think is going to come next. Is we already hear about the digital twins. So we create, a virtual environment that is very, very similar to the real one, where you can run your simulations, where you can develop algorithms to develop brains, and train those brains in these virtual environments.
Logically, we're talking about simulation here, aren't we?
I would say something beyond simulation, because the new platform that we are actually working on, it's not only making a simulation study, it's an open platform, it's a development environment where people can go in and, and it's very open. It's based on industry standards, and you can plug in whatever algorithm you are developing to test it. You can integrate with all the existing systems in a real terminal with a real toast. So that's what we, probably know as simulation, as emulation. Now, digital twin is a real-time version of it. So you are monitoring in real time everything that's happening, and you can plug your algorithm and test it, in a real operation going on. So I would say it's like, the next logical step after simulation. It's beyond simulation a little bit.
Thanks, Mauricio. That's very interesting. I want to switch now to Michael Houen from Hatch. Is there anything you'd like to add on to what Mauricio's just taken us through?
I think sometimes the understanding of AI can be built that it is not necessarily a all-powerful, omnipotent, parallel intelligence that runs everything. AI can be used in, small applications within the terminal to improve decision-making process. Decking decisions are a great example within a terminal where once upon a time it was very much a human-driven decision-making process to allocate space for containers within the yard. And they were manually assisted throughout that process by people along the task. Pretty much every terminal in the world now with a modern TOS would see that as an automated process where there may be parameters set within the terminal, but AI takes over and makes the decision on a container-by-container basis, using real-time information as to where to put that container within the yard. So, AI is not necessarily handing over the keys and coming back next week to clean the terminal up. It is a partner rather than a controlling entity. AI is part of a solution, but at the end of the day, the effective design and the understanding of your terminal process and the drive to optimize that process needs to consider, digital and automation tools in that space, of which AI is just a part. It has a significant potential for, as the end goal, and the building of a truly digital system to operate a terminal, as I mentioned before, has boundaries that spread out across the rest of the supply chain. But start small, build your capability, build your people. Any effective solution requires, the three main elements of people, process, and technology. And if you just consider one, the whole will fail.
Thanks, Michael. I want to change pace again. Alexis from Bloog. Do you see other applications of artificial intelligence, either in ports or terminals, in your daily work?
When you look, for example, at the maritime industry in a whole, the logistics chain, then you see that there's a number of different stakeholders, and they are all involved, and they have a lot of data about the transport good, but sometimes data is missing. Yeah. And it's very likely, I think there's a lot of potential in general that you can find this missing data. Either you ask your partners to provide you with the data, or maybe it's hidden in some of the data you already have. And then you can use machine learning or AI to produce it from the data you already have. So I think there's a number of different applications possible. Yeah. I think what I'm expecting, or maybe also I'm curious to see it, or I would love to see it, is that AI is used a little bit more on a higher level. When we look, for example, at the question of selecting a slot at the terminal for a container to position it at the terminal, then you could use, and this has been done, machine learning to improve the data, to make the decision better. But you could go one step further and try to push the whole decision to a machine learning module, not just on a low level improving some of the data ingredients, but giving this whole decision to the machine learning algorithm. And I think it is possible, but this really needs a little bit more work, and also on the design of such solutions to be successful.
Really interesting, Alexis. Thanks for that contribution. It's a good segue into my final question, which I'm going to kick across to Richard Willis from Royal Haskoning. We've talked a lot about what AI can achieve today. What do you see coming in the next couple of years?
Improvements around terminal operating systems, I think, is a growing area, as you well know. I think there's more to be done there in improving those processes in around the TOS, and that's actually a greater ecosystem of vendors looking at this challenges around dwell time and optimization. Actually, I think there's a logical next step there, which is working better within the supply chain and within the terminal's role within the supply chain. So many terminals, gateway terminals, rely on big factories, car plants, distribution centers around the port in that kind of port-centric model. There's more to be done there with joining up the production line of the factory and the container terminal, storage and stowage and planning. There's more to be done to streamline that, and that would benefit the terminal and would benefit the production line of the factory. I think that for me, that would be something that some ports are looking at, and I think there's more there, I think. Another kind of slightly tangential one, but interesting and definitely on trend, is looking at more at smart metering and power system monitoring within ports. Ports use a lot of power, and in a spiky way often, with cranes and ships and things happening and pumps. And there's a lot of pressure on reducing cost from power from an internal point of view, but also improving the carbon footprint of ports. Ports are now starting to generate more renewable energy within their estate. So it's making a more complex power structure. And by monitoring, using smart metering and network monitoring, You can use machine learning to refine when we might draw power from the grid, when we might use our new renewable energy, if we have energy storage, when we might sell power back to the grid, by understanding better where and when and how we use power in our site. I think it's something we've done a few times with clients, and I think there's some interesting applications in there.
Thanks, Richard. What a great example of AI's application within the broader theme of sustainability and energy transition that we're, of course, all very familiar with within the industry today. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of our first video. On behalf of myself and Port Technology, I want to thank all of the consultants who contributed their time and their thoughts into this piece, and I look forward to seeing you on our next video.